In this episode, we're going to hear from James Benn, who's professor of Buddhism and East Asian religions at McMaster University. James has published articles on self-immolation, spontaneous human combustion, apocryphal scriptures, and tea and alcohol in medieval China in a range of different journals. And he's also the author of 2 books, Burning for the Buddha, Self-Immolation in Chinese Buddhism, and Tea in China, A Religious and Cultural History. James is going to address a problem that many scholars have, which is how to organize the massive amounts of data that we have to deal with as researchers. So he's going to walk us through his process of collecting notes and resources and using Dropbox, Zotero, Evernote, Notion, Roam Research, and all the way to writing using Scrivener before putting his finalized pieces into a word processing document.
Hello everyone, I'm James Benn. I study Buddhism in medieval China, and in this brief video I'll show you how I work using Dropbox as my central repository, Evernote, Notion, and Roam Research as my note-taking and idea-generating tools, and Scrivener to write with. This is my desktop. Well, not really. This is just my screen capture desktop where I record videos like this one. I work across platforms, so I regularly use a Windows 10 desktop, which you're seeing now, a recent MacBook Pro, 2 or 3 Windows laptops, plus an iPad Pro, and my phone. So the first element in my workflow is that everything has to sync across devices and platforms. I use Dropbox, and although I have some rudimentary folder and file structure, I rely a lot on search to find things. So everything goes into Dropbox. Articles, books, etc. get dropped into a folder called All PDFs, and then periodically indexed using Zotero, which I'm going to show you in a minute. The PDF metadata just generates the entries. So you can see that I don't have to worry too much about renaming the files that go into All PDFs. I actually let Zotero do that. And I don't put things into fancy folders because otherwise I know I won't be able to find them. But let's go over to Zotero. Let's just add a PDF. So here it is. It's been added. You can see it's just got some random name to it. I'm going to retrieve the PDF metadata, and there it is. So now I have the metadata and I have the PDF in Zotero. This is handy because, well, I know where it is, and also I can search across the contents of PDFs as well as the metadata using the Everything tab in Zotero. I make all my bibliographies in Zotero and I include the PDFs wherever possible. I get the tables of contents of journals via email wherever possible. You can sign up for that, and then that allows me to import the latest articles straight into Zotero via the web. I use hashtags a fair amount in Zotero. You can see the hashtags there in the lower left corner, so those are quite helpful. The PDFs in Zotero are searchable, as we said, and Zotero integrates with Scrivener, which is what I use for my writing, and with MS Word. Now, in terms of notes, the backbone of my note-taking is Evernote. We're looking here at the web application because I can't run the app locally on the screen capture account. I've used Evernote for more than 10 years. I have over 40,000 notes in it. I know people will object that it's a proprietary system and it's hard to extract the notes if you stop using it and stop paying for it. But I find Evernote essential because there's so many ways of getting information into it. For example, all my outgoing email I BCC to Evernote, so I have a copy of it in Evernote, which is searchable. Incoming email I forward into Evernote. I clip from the web into Evernote from whatever device I'm using. I make notes in Evernote, again from whatever device I'm using, and they'll sync across all the platforms and to the web. And then once something's in Evernote, it's searchable. So notes that I generate, photos, scans, emails, PDFs, tweets, as you can see here. All my tweets go in here, or all the things that I mark as favorite go into here. Even photos are OCR'd for text in Evernote. So if I can't find a book on my shelves, I'll just send a photo into Evernote and search for the title and see if I can locate it on the shelves that way. But honestly, although Evernote is useful as a central repository for things, and I do have some kind of relatively basic notebook structure there, but the notebooks that I use most are called generic things like work and research. I use tags a lot in Evernote. You can't do too much with Evernote. It's basically just a place to store information. It's like a filing cabinet. So for practical application of notes, for actually doing stuff with the information once I have it, I use two other apps that I'm going to talk about today. Notion, which I use mostly for structured projects like teaching and editing, and Rome Research, which is where I make the connections between notes and ideas. So we'll have a look over at Notion here. This is Notion. As you can see, it allows you to do relatively simple databases. I have it set up for teaching, so this is teaching from the current semester here at McMaster. This is a course that I'm running. Here are the various modules. Here are the other courses and the material that goes with them. This is a video tracker for all the videos that I have now shot for one of my courses. And you can see this is just where I store structured information. If we go all the way to the bottom, you can see what I'm doing right now, which is this video I put under teaching. Notion is helpful. It's one of those applications where you can just start typing anywhere and then work out where you're actually going to put the information later. There's a lot of templates that you can get. It has a very active user community, and there's tons of videos on YouTube if you want to use Notion in a more sophisticated way than what I'm doing. As you can see, my other major area is work. So here I have writing projects all sorted out by date and so on. Make sure that I don't lose things. But if I want to be creative and want to actually bring ideas together and start generating some synergy across the materials that I have, I've been using Rome Research. I've used mind mapping in various incarnations, starting with pen and paper since I was about 9 years old. So if you're familiar with the concept of mind mapping, so not doing things in a linear way but making associations horizontally across things, then I think Rome Research will likely make sense to you. What happens is you backlink all of the entries using tags, and you generate something that looks like this after you've been inputting the notes for a while. So you can see a bunch of different nodes, which is where the connections get made. I will click on this one, see what it is. This is a project that I'm working on Lungenjing, the apocryphal Shiramgama Sutra. You can see that there are 93 linked references where I've included the hashtag. But what Rome does that's clever is to go back through, once you've identified something as something you're interested by including it in square brackets, it then goes back through all of your other notes and starts finding other references to the same things. We can now link these things that were unlinked and make those links work together. So you can see at the left panel here, I have some shortcuts to the things that I use relatively frequently. So here are all my entries on teaching. You can see they're grouped by date because that's how you get the information in. Research is obviously relatively extensive. There's talks, there's graduate supervision, and what Rome presents you with every day basically is a page like this that gives you the date, and then you can do a / command, put the current time in, and tell Rome Research what you're working on. Here I'm going to tag it again back to Buddhist Studies. That's the way that you get information into Rome, and then it starts making the connections for you. That's my note taking, my note organization, and my note connections. Let's have a look at where I do my writing. So this is Scrivener. Here I'm showing you about as simple a page as you can get. This is an entry in a book that's only about 1,000 words long, so I haven't had to crop it too much. So here in the left panel you can see the writing. On the right panel I've just put the information that I'm actually working on. So the nice thing about Scrivener is that it keeps together within a project not only your writing, but also the supporting reference material that goes with it. Let's have a look at a slightly more complex project. So here's another piece of writing that I'm doing. So you can see over here that I'm working on this draft just in relatively small chunks. I can move around those chunks and reorder the way that the final article will appear. Here I've got my research material, you can see that I can include textual material, I can include visual material, I can include, obviously it works in multiple languages, I can include text that I want to translate. Here over on the right hand side you can see the footnotes from the actual writing that I'm doing. This is often how I use it, is I'll have a bunch of material side by side. It's very useful for translation because you can work on your translated text and then have additional material on the screen with you. You don't lose the material, it's not open in another app, it's all open in the same app. If you want to go into focused mode and do some focused writing, then that is available to you there. I use Scrivener. It's a professional writing tool used by novelists, script writers and so on. I'm a professional writer, so that's what I use. Of course I use Microsoft Word for formatting the final product, for word processing in fact, which is what that tool is for. But anything longer than an email, letters of recommendation, grant applications, articles, chapters, books, I write in Scrivener. It allows me to ignore the linearity of a word processor document to work on small chunks of text, and it allows me to keep all my sources, PDFs, plain text, images, etc. together in a single project along with my writing. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that brief run through of my workflow. I'm sure there's better ways of doing all the different things that I've talked about, and there are plenty of videos out there that'll tell you how to use Roam Research or Notion or even Scrivener in much more sophisticated ways than what I do, but this is what works for me. If you'd like to know more about any of those tools, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to give you further information, or we can chat virtually and we can do some screen share and I can walk you through some of the ways that I do things. Thanks very much for your attention and good luck with your own research and writing.